Happy Monday. Welcome back to The Formed Life. We want to take some time to prepare for the message that's coming up in our Signs of Life series on Sunday. And this week, we are looking at the Word. That is the title of the sermon. That comes from verse 60 of our passage in John, where some of Jesus' disciples actually look at him and say, Jesus, the word that you give is too hard. Now, if you're looking at the ESV, they may translate that as, Jesus, the saying that you give, what you're saying is too difficult for us. But literally in the Greek, it's the word. Jesus, the word that you're teaching, it is too much for us. And I want to give you a little bit of context as to why they're saying that, and then leave us with a question at the end that we can ponder throughout the week as we prepare for Sunday. If you remember back in chapter 5 of John, Jesus is saying who he is, and actually explicitly says Moses and the prophets, so that the whole Jewish Old Testament, the whole Jewish Bible points to me, talks about me, is about me. And then the rest of chapter 6, John points out all the ways Jesus is a new and better Moses. So Jesus, at the beginning of chapter 6, feeds 5,000 people in the wilderness while he's teaching, and goes away for a little bit, and then he comes back and he starts teaching again. And when he's teaching, he points out again that what Moses did in the wilderness, when the Jews were wandering in the wilderness with God, and God provided manna from heaven to feed them, Jesus says, that's what I've done in feeding the 5,000. Except the bread that Moses gave did not lead to eternal life, and the bread that I give does. And some of the crowd question him about this, and he ends up saying, listen, you have to eat my flesh and drink my blood if you want to abide in me and abide in the Father. In other words, if you want to experience the salvation that God is bringing in and through me, you've got to eat my flesh and drink my blood. Now, that's the moment where some of the Jewish crowd, they start to grumble. That's what John points out. And we are meant to, again, think of that wilderness wandering when the Jews are getting bread from heaven and they begin to grumble against God and say, God, we're sick of this manna. We don't want your salvation. It'd be better if we went back to Egypt. The same thing is happening here in John chapter 6. And many disciples actually flat out walk away from Jesus. They say, this saying is too hard. We're out. Jesus then looks at the 12, right, his closest friends, his most intimate disciples and apprentices, and says, what about you? Are you going to stick with me, or is this too much? And once again, Peter, his faith shines through, and he says, Jesus, where else would we go? You and you alone have words of eternal life. So here's what I want us to prepare for this week. What John seems to be pointing out is that real authentic faith, real apprenticeship to Jesus will include moments where we say, Jesus, that is a really hard word. I'm offended, Jesus, by what you're asking me to do, by what you're asking me to believe, what you're asking me to trust. There should, in fact, be moments like that along our discipleship journey. And equally, to be real followers of Jesus, we should still come to the same conclusion Peter does. Jesus, even though your word is really, really hard, it is a word of eternal life. See how those go together? Even the hardest words of Jesus are words of eternal life. And so this week, as we prepare for Sunday, I want you to ask yourself one question. When is the last time you looked at Jesus or prayed to him, right, and said, Jesus, that is a really hard word? When is the last time you've been offended by something Jesus says in his word or is asking you to do, even in your own quiet time and reflection with him? When is the last time that happened? What was it? And what has God done since to show you that that hard word is actually a word of life for you?